This demon salesman grants every wish for free, but you must follow his rules. Once you use this little pillow, your brain can block out every sound you don't want to hear. Kawashima couldn't focus at work because at night his wife's loud teeth grinding kept him awake. And when he escaped to the living room, his son's all-night gaming sessions tortured him instead. That's when Shirakuro appeared, the laughing salesman, handed Kawashima a futuristic pillow. Try this, you'll get the rest you deserve. From that day on, Kawashima was a new man, energetic, focused. Even his subordinates didn't dare slack off around him anymore. During boring meetings, when everyone else was zoning out at the boss's endless rambling, Kawashima heard nothing but calm, soothing sounds. At home, the pillow filtered out his wife's constant nagging, and he finally slept soundly, completely undisturbed by the awful grinding noise beside him. Grateful, Kawashima went to thank Shirakuro. The demon smiled kindly and warned, "The pillow's still imperfect. If you hear its alarm, take it off right away." But in Kawashima's tranquil world, that warning drifted away like background noise. Later, during an important meeting, his boss asked him to read the quarterly report. Just then, the pillow started beeping loudly. The others looked around, confused by the strange noise. Then before anyone could react, smoke began rising from Kawashima's neck pillow. The salesman Kuro kindly reached out to steady Reiko as she was about to fall, but she instinctively elbowed him, causing his briefcase to fall into the river. Later, Reiko apologized to Kuro. She explained that she reacted reflexively because her creepy boss often harassed her. Because of that, as a modern independent woman, Reiko had come to believe all men were bad. She disliked them. Kuro decided to help her solve her problem. The next day, on the train, her boss was suddenly groped by a woman's hand. When he tried to strike back, she publicly accused him of being a pervert, all part of Kuro's plan. The major scandal got the boss fired, and Reiko was promoted. She wouldn't be harassed by creeps anymore. The next day, a handsome guy named Yamada was sent by a partner company for negotiations. At his strong suggestion, they discussed the contract over dinner. Under Yamada's charming pressure, Reiko agreed to a solo date. Their relationship heated up quickly. Then suddenly, the moon morphed into Kuro's face. He warned Reiko not to be fooled by men, but Reiko fell for Yamada anyway. They made it official. Then, in an elevator, Kuro appeared out of nowhere and startled her. He accused Reiko of breaking their promise. If she wanted to be an independent woman, she should live like one. No romance, no losing her heart to a man. The next day, Reiko worked late and almost forgot her date. Kuro's voice echoed in her ear, "You must not fall in love." But Reiko went anyway. Yamada spotted her by the subway and decided to play a prank. But Reiko's reflexes hadn't changed. She elbowed him hard, and he fell right in front of an oncoming train. Then I have questions. Who do you think is to blame for Yamada's tragedy? The modern independent woman should be self-reliant and live on her own terms. But does that mean she can't fall in love? During George's first time shaving a customer, his hand slipped then sliced off the demon Shirakuro's nose. But Shirakuro simply picked up the rubber nose from the floor and said it was all just a prank. As compensation for the scare, Shirakuro decided to grant George one wish. George pulled up his pant leg, revealing his calf. "We always practice on our own legs. If I did this to a customer, I'd be finished." Shirakuro saw the longing in his eyes. He took out a prop cigarette and explained that anyone who smoked it would be filled with confidence. Once George tried it, he truly became bold. He pushed his boss aside, pinned the customer down, and finished the shave despite the man's yelling. To everyone's surprise, the customer was perfectly satisfied. The whole staff was amazed. Thrilled, George went to thank Shirakuro, but he had already vanished, leaving only a box of the prop cigarettes, with a warning to use them carefully. George treasured them like gold. He wouldn't even give one to his coworker Chopper. With the cigarettes' help, George finally earned his boss's approval. But luck doesn't last forever. One day Chopper was headed out on a date and asked George for a shave. Even after serving many customers, the moment George held the razor, his nerves returned. He reached for a prop cigarette to calm himself, only to find the box empty. It turned out Chopper and the others had smoked them all during a mahjong game the night before. Now George was truly panicked. Chopper, completely unaware, kept urging him to hurry. By the time Chopper felt the blade against his neck, it was already too late. Hiroshi was the only child who dared provoke the demon Shirakuro. He possessed a death notebook. Each time someone bullied him, he drew a black star next to their name. Once 10 black stars were filled, that person's fate was sealed, their end would come. That day, the neighbor's cat scratched his face again. Including past offenses, the cat had now earned 10 stars. He lured it with fish, tied it up, and before carrying out the execution, read aloud the cat's crimes. He coated the cat in ink, pressed it against rice paper, and created a posthumous portrait. Then he raised his knife, ready to act. But a stone flew through the air. The cat escaped. The one who intervened? The demon, Shirakuro. Shirakuro said to him, "Let's work together." But Hiroshi refused. He preferred to work alone. The next day, a large dog pinned him to the ground, and his classmate John saw the whole thing. John spread the story everywhere. Furious, Hiroshi filled 10 stars next to John's name. He set a trap. He had John's crush Satsuki trick John into a fake date. John rushed over happily, only to get a bucket of ink dumped on his head. The next moment, Hiroshi, wrapped in a white sheet, charged out and captured John's posthumous portrait. Enraged, John chased after him and fell straight into a deep pit. "Help me," John begged. Hiroshi coldly sealed the opening with a steel plate. On his way home, Hiroshi Hiroshi met that dog again. It trampled the flowers Satsuki had given him. That dog had long since earned 10 stars. This time, he wouldn't let it go. He found 2 fishermen and tricked them into a dog fishing contest, promising a 1 billion yen fishing rod to the winner. They took the bait, hooked the dog, and dragged it wildly down the road. Crash. They collided with a bulldozer. Everything went exactly as Hiroshi planned. Again, he coated the dog in ink, pressed it onto canvas, took its portrait, and carried it home. But on his way back, the demon Shirakuro appeared. John isn't dead. I saved him. Still, after all that, John never dared bully him again. But the rage in Hiroshi's heart hadn't cooled. He decided to punish that meddling Shirakuro. So when Shirakuro came again to propose cooperation, Hiroshi smirked and drew his crossbow. He fired an arrow and prepared to splash ink. He would take Shirakuro's posthumous portrait, but Shirakuro didn't die. It turned out his metal business card had blocked the arrow. Shirakuro smiled coldly. Now, it's my turn. As long as you wore this magical gold ring, the sight of alcohol would fill you with disgust. Mishima, a heavy drinker, put it on. When his colleagues invited him for drinks as usual, thanks to the ring, he managed to resist the urge. So he had time with his family, went out on a trip together. All 3 of them were happy. Mishima was deeply grateful to the Laughing Salesman, Shirakuro, for providing the ring. But then Shirakuro set one condition. Mishima must never remove the ring, no matter what. He agreed to the promise. The next day, his boss asked him to attend a client dinner. This put Mishima, who had just quit drinking, in a difficult position. But he couldn't refuse his superior's order, and not drinking with clients was considered rude. Mishima decided to temporarily take off the ring, thinking he could avoid its punishment. But how could anyone break a deal with a demon and escape consequences? Later, the client wanted to share another drink with Mishima, but this time, the ring wouldn't come off. Instead, it grew tighter and tighter. Mishima rushed out of the room and tried to rinse the ring under running water, but what flowed from the faucet was not water, but sake. In a panic, he bumped into a passing server. My god, his finger wearing the ring broke off. Afterward, Shirakuro calmly explained that this was all to help Mishima quit drinking, and besides, he was the one who broke their agreement first. If it were you, would you have taken off the ring for the sake of your job? Ever since he was a boy, this man had treated a concrete pipe as his secret base. He even kept his most treasured toys inside. But today, someone was trying to destroy a part of his childhood. Kawasaki confronted the workers, but he was no match for them. Luckily, Shirakuro used a crane to save him. Then he took Kawasaki to a mysterious paradise, a place meant only for those who'd never lost their childlike heart. Nothing from the dirty grown-up world was allowed inside. Everyone who played there had to wear children's clothes, so their hearts and minds could become like kids again. Kawasaki quickly made friends with everyone, and he met a girl who shared his love for small, cozy spaces. They felt completely at home inside the narrow pipe. After that, Kawasaki went to the vacant lot every day after work, until one day a sex worker approached him, and he recognized her as the girl who shared his childhood hobby. She explained that her father had abandoned her seriously ill mother, so she had to sell her body to survive. Kawasaki's heart went out to her. He embezzled money from his company and hid it in their usual meeting spot inside the concrete pipe. But this time, it was Shirakuro who showed up, because Kawasaki had broken the rules by bringing adult corruption and sin into their pure space. He was banned from the vacant lot forever. What poor Kawasaki never knew was that the money he stole still reached the girl, just not in the way he imagined. She already had a wealthy boyfriend, and she drove off happily in his luxury car. The demon Shirakuro promised Nobita that after his divorce, he could have any woman he wanted. But at first, Nobita stayed firm in his marriage. Then one day, he came home from work and overheard his mother-in-law and wife mocking him. They had been married for 3 years with no child, and the mother-in-law wondered if Nobita was less of a man. His wife quickly agreed, calling him weak and ineffective. That was the final straw. Nobita thought back on all the humiliation he had endured since marrying into her family. He did all the hard and dirty work, gave his all to his wife's company, yet was paid a pitiful salary. Now, insulted by her mother and despised by his own wife, Nobita finally made up his mind. He would divorce. In a bar, Shirakuro had the divorce papers ready. "Sign here," he said, "and you can join an exclusive club, where every beautiful woman will be yours to choose from." They went aboard a luxury ship, where Nobita experienced what true high society felt like. There he met his true love, a stunning blonde woman. They were drawn to each other instantly. After sharing a dance, amid the romantic atmosphere, they officially became a couple.
いや、ほんと、君と結婚してよかったな。いやー、君だなんて他人行儀の呼び方やめて。お願い、お前って呼んでちょうだい。
Maybe in today's world, when two people truly love each other, gender isn't an issue at all. The man was scolded by his wife just for setting the alarm too early. His son showed him no respect either. He felt he had a house, but not a home. The mysterious Shirakuro approached him, offering to replace his family with a perfect one. At first, the man hesitated and refused. But the next day, as he passed a blood donation drive, he saw a little girl handing out flyers. He decided to donate blood. The nurse who drew his blood was beautiful and gentle. He couldn't help thinking, if only my wife were this kind. That evening, he specially bought a gift for his wife, only to be met with sarcasm and his son's yelling. Furious, he threw the gift down and stormed out. Shirakuro Shirakuro appeared once more. This time, he promised to introduce the man to a new family, and the man didn't refuse. They arrived at a beautiful house. The moment the door opened, the gentle nurse from the blood drive called him darling, and the little flyer girl ran over calling him daddy. This was the family he had always dreamed of. Tears of gratitude filled his eyes. Meanwhile, his real wife and son began to feel they had gone too far. His wife grew worried about him, and his son started blaming his mother for overreacting. Just then, there was a knock at the door. It was Shirakuro. He led the mother and son to the same house. They followed a soft glow inside, only to find a scene they could hardly believe. So after reading the story, what would you say is the lesson here? Whenever Kazuko got angry, she went on a shopping spree. After maxing out her own credit card, she remembered the limitless black card given by the smiling salesman Shirakuro last night. Free anyway, why not use it? She splurged on luxury items she normally couldn't afford. But the next day, all the purchases were forcibly taken back by staff. It turned out the card's rule was, only the joy of buying remains. Everything is reclaimed the next day. Refusing to accept it, Kazuko kept experimenting. Sure enough, everything vanished by morning. Then she used the card to pay for a beauty treatment and was hit on by a handsome stranger right after. They quickly grew close, and he even kissed her goodbye that night. That fluttery feeling made her believe she'd finally found something even better than shopping. But then Shirakuro quietly appeared. You used the black card for that beauty service. Now, it's time to take it back. Maybe what's free often comes with the highest price. If you had this limitless black card, how would you use it? She abandoned her husband and daughter for her first love, only to end up living in a shabby room, dependent on others' goodwill. Shizuka once had a young, poor ceramic artist as her first love. Forced to break up due to family opposition, she married another man and started a family. Years later, that first love made a stunning comeback as a famous artist. A single teacup of his sold for a staggering 180,000. While she struggled with family pressures, her husband who came home drunk from social events, her rebellious daughter who refused to listen. Shirakuro kept tempting her. If you had chosen him back then, imagine how happy you'd be now. By chance, Shizuka finally reunited with her first love. As they talked, their old feelings resurfaced, but soon his wife caught them. Shizuka fled. Later, Shizuka's daughter realized her own mistakes and wanted to apologize to her mother. And Shizuka's husband had only gotten drunk because he'd just been promoted the day before. But influenced by Shirakuro's whispers, Shizuka had already chosen to run away with her first love. Reality soon bared its teeth. Her first love had left his marriage with nothing, and the two were squeezed into a cramped, run-down apartment. Poverty stripped away the artist's former tenderness, leaving only resentment and bitterness. Perhaps those what-if thoughts in a marriage are just the start of another trap. Do you ever regret not marrying your first love? Yoshiko discovered that every time she looked into this magical mirror, she grew a little more beautiful. Her colleagues were amazed, her friends asked for her secret, and she became utterly obsessed with the perfect self she saw reflected. Then the demon Shirakuro appeared, demanding his mirror back. He told her a story. Long ago, a countess offered a young maiden as a sacrifice every Christmas to preserve her beauty. When the truth came out, the demon was sealed inside this very mirror. Yoshiko pretended to agree, but secretly bought a fake mirror to hand over instead. She couldn't give up the lure of growing more beautiful. 3 days later, her lie was exposed. Because she broke the rule, Shirakuro unleashed his punishment. That night, as Yoshiko gazed into the mirror, she tripped, and the glass shattered violently. At the same moment, an identical crack appeared across her own face. Perhaps beauty bought with one's soul will always crumble when the contract breaks. If you obtain this magical mirror, how would you use it? This lonely old man was pitched a virtual family service by the demon Shirakuro. Every day, he began receiving messages from a grandson. At first resistant, he gradually grew addicted. He even bought an expensive smartphone and stayed up late learning how to use it just to see more of his grandson. A coworker noticed the child's uniform in the photos looked familiar, possibly from a specific sports club. The old man immediately asked for the address. He knew it was all fake, yet he couldn't resist the warmth it brought. Then Shirakuro warned him, never meet your virtual grandson in person, or face the consequences. But when a message arrived saying his grandson was injured, the old man couldn't take it anymore. He brought gifts and went straight to the sports ground. The moment he arrived, the boy and his mom looked completely confused. It was as if they had no idea who he was. Just then, Shirakuro appeared, ready to punish the old man for breaking the rules. Outwardly, the old man seemed unharmed, but on his way home, he saw his virtual grandson calling another man grandpa. The sight broke the old man's heart. Then the boy noticed him. The old man was pulled inside by the child. And oh my goodness, the room was full of elderly people, all lined up, giving gifts to the same grandson. If you grew old and lived alone, would you choose a virtual family service like this? Come share your thoughts in the comments. This woman said she wanted to marry Sunio when she first time came to his home. Then she proactively took off all her clothes for his inspection. Sunio blushed bright red. In truth, he and this woman had been nothing more than strangers who rode the same subway every day. Although he often fantasized about a romantic encounter, their relationship had never progressed beyond that. The demon Shirakuro saw the desire in Sunio's heart and decided to bring them together. After some internal conflict, Sunio agreed to work with him. The next day, Shirakuro told Sunio she would come to his apartment that evening for a date and remind him the woman had a difficult past. If Sunio was only interested in her looks, he would end up hurting her. Sunio earnestly promised it wasn't just her beauty he loved, it was who she was. That night, the woman arrived as promised. What shocked him even more was her first words, "I want to marry you." Of course, Sunio said yes. He told her he could see in her eyes that she was a kind person and that his feelings weren't just about her appearance. The woman believed him. She decided to be completely honest with Sunio. He asked why she so pretty always wore a mask. She explained that her cosmetic surgery had gone wrong, and then she showed him her real face.
これでも私を愛してますか
Shirakuro was puzzled. If Sunio claimed to love her soul, why he cannot truly accept the face she now revealed? Yamada mistook a roadside rock for Japanese mahjong tiles and accidentally kicked one into the demon Shirakuro's face. Surprisingly pleased, Shirakuro decided to grant Yamada a wish. After learning that Yamada wanted to quit his mahjong addiction, Shirakuro took action. When Yamada went to the parlor with coworkers, Shirakuro dragged him away, warning the others not to invite him again or face bad luck. For the first time in years, Yamada came home early. He was grateful. He'd neglected his wife for too long because of mahjong. Then each time his friends tried to lure him back to the game, Shirakuro showed up and pulled him away. But Yamada grew restless. His co-workers noticed and sneaked him into a parlor, avoiding Shirakuro at the door. 10 days without playing had made Yamada desperate, but Shirakuro soon appeared quickly, tracked down the co-worker who led him there, and the next day, that man was hit by a car. Shirakuro told Yamada he wouldn't bother him anymore, but promised a more efficient way to cure his addiction. From then on, Yamada never won at mahjong again. Even worse, Shirakuro taught Yamada's wife to play overnight. Soon, every housewife in the building became her mahjong partner, and she grew so obsessed she stopped doing any housework. Now Yamada truly regretted breaking his deal with the demon. John got tangled in the branches of a growing eucalyptus tree and ended up hanging from a utility pole. It all started when he reported his neighbor Sunio to the landlord for keeping a pet bird in their apartment, which was against the rules. When Sunio came home from work that day, his beloved bird was gone. He searched everywhere for the missing pet until Shirakuro appeared and told him what John had done. Knowing he'd broken the lease by keeping a pet, Sunio swallowed his anger. To console him, Shirakuro gave him a new kind of pet, a eucalyptus tree that could communicate if raised well, and since it was a plant, it wouldn't break the apartment rules. Soon the eucalyptus sprouted. Sunio named it Yuka. Under his care, Yuka grew quickly. Watching it grow from a small shoot brought him real joy. But then John started causing trouble again. When Sunio came home one evening, he found eucalyptus branches scattered everywhere. Luckily, Shirakuro showed up and used magic to restore Yuka. Then it grew faster and larger than before. Its branches stretched through the walls, wrapping around John's room, until the vindictive tree hoisted him up the utility pole again. Some people aren't truly evil, they just love causing trouble by tattling. Maybe this world also needs a meddling demon to teach them a lesson. This old man offered the young man a crazy deal, 100 grand a day just to go out, have fun, and come back to tell him the stories. And when it was all done, the old man promised to hand over his entire savings, 3 million. This young guy agreed because he was drowning in gambling debt. He was desperate until a salesman named Kuro showed up. Kuro recommended this part-time job, but warned him, you must follow the client's request, or else something worse will happen. However, the man got his first payment and ran back to the casino. He cleared his debt and then gambled even harder. Soon he lost everything again, this time owing the bad guys 3 million. Under pressure, he dragged them to the old man's house, hoping to get an advance. But the neighbor told him the owner of this place had left half a year ago. Meanwhile, in a quiet bar, this old man took Kuro's 10 grand fee, finishing his prank on the young man, and returned the 3 million in full. The old man asked, confused, what do you gain from this? Kuro just laughed, nothing. I just like picking random strangers and playing harmless little games. So the young man was being beaten to a pulp by the bad guys. In the end, I want to say even if it's just a side job, you can't slack off. When you make a promise, you'd better keep it, because the cost of breaking it might be way heavier than you think. The man saw his wife feeding another man. He was filled with regret because it was all his fault. Kawashima's wife made terrible boxed lunches, but if he didn't finish them, she would get furious and beat him. So every day, Kawashima had no choice but to throw the lunch in the trash and pretend he'd eaten it. One day, a mysterious salesman named Kuro stopped him from wasting food and decided to help. From then on, they met every day by the statue and swapped lunches. The delicious meals from Kuro made Kawashima the envy of his coworkers. He was deeply grateful. Now he looked forward to lunch every day, but he grew curious curious, who was eating his wife's cooking? After all, no one would willingly eat that. Kuro warned him not to ask or face the consequences. However, driven by curiosity, Kawashima went to the statue early. He saw the lunch being handed to a sleazy-looking homeless man from the park. After learning the truth, Kawashima realized he'd forgotten his lunchbox. He chased off a stray cat to get it back, but his wife noticed something was wrong. This time the box was licked suspiciously clean. Kawashima blamed it on the cat. He even complimented the meal, but accidentally mentioned an ingredient that wasn't even in it. He was done for. His wife beat him again, and he had no choice but to flee the house. Meanwhile, Kuro discovered Kawashima had broken their agreement. A demon's punishment followed. When Kawashima returned home, he heard laughter inside. His wife was happily feeding that same homeless man, who was enjoying the food with a blissful smile. Kawashima was in shock, because he broke his promise to Kuro. Not only were the lunches swapped, their lives had been swapped too. In real life, couples separate for many reasons. In this story, it was over something as simple as a meal. Now I have a question. If a couple has different eating habits, can their marriage really not last?